Thank you much for inviting me down here tonight. I couldn't even begin to imagine, 5 years ago where I was, if I'd have ever thought that someday I'd be standing in a room like this, talking to people about my project and talking very proudly, because the SOS is a very unique service. It's a very targeted service, a very specific service. And it works to combat the whole negative cycle of crime, the whole negative mindset, the attitudes that are involved. So what is the SOS? The SOS Project is a holistic, tailor-made service. It needs to be tailor-made purely and simply because there's no one reason for a person reoffending. No one reason at all. What makes Mr. A offend and not Mr. B is completely different for each and every one of us. We're all motivated by different factors. And how the SOS Project was conceived was by my pure shock, actually, of young people picking up knives, guns in the community, endless amounts of death. I know you've all seen it in the news. It costs about £80,000 to convict an offender and keep them in custody for 1 year, just 1 year. And when we think about the kinds of costs that are involved, that doesn't even include the cost to victims and their families. I thought that was the ding bell there. So when we look at that, it makes the cost actually staggering. And when we think that only 25% of 100 people will not be offended, it makes you think that you're just throwing your money away. I remember reading this article a couple of weeks ago, and it was quite well said that there's no other service quite like the prison service in the world. If it was a doctor or a dentist and you had the same client coming back or the same patient coming back with the same problem year after year after year, they'd say close that dentist down. He needs to be removed, he needs to be struck off, but there we have it. So why does the SOS Project work where all these other projects fail? Firstly, we provide credible mentors. We're talking about ex-offenders. How many times, I know there must be a few of you that have got children, have you spoken to a young person and they said, you just don't understand where I'm coming from? When you're working with a young person who's in prison, it's the same thing. They've come from a marred background, they've come from a different level of social depravity. So good wishes and good thoughts on their own, whilst they're good, will just not cut it. They need someone that they can relate to, someone who's been there, someone who's done that, someone who can see the mines in the field and can help them avoid them. So what do? We're proactive. We go straight into prisons. We target our offenders, believe it or not, and we go into prisons and we engage with them up to and including a year before they're released, helping them build a support plan and realistic targets. So not some pie in the sky ideas about, you want to be a solicitor or a doctor or whatever. We're working with them from the base up, and we're working with them in a holistic sense. So we're not just working with the client, we're working with their family. We're working with probation. That's right, probation, because probation are the people that are supporting that person upon release. The legal teams, if they've got children, and a lot of them are, we're working with social services. We're addressing the underlying issues, rather than being a bit like the prison system, which is just giving everyone a blanket approach. Imagine this. You come out of prison after serving a 4-year sentence and you're given a £40 discount warrant. And that sum, by the way, hasn't changed since 1997 when it was first introduced. And you're given a list of appointments. You've got a family that you've been in and out of prison so many times, they don't even really believe in promises anymore. That's the kind of situation you're on. That's the kind of situation you're in. And the chances are for most young people, if they come out of those gates, the first thing they'll do, if they don't see family or loved ones, they'll call up their friends. And they're right back in the middle of the situation that they started in, right back in the centre of it. Now, let's rewind that, and let's put an SOS mentor who meets a person in prison, builds with them a positive support plan, gets them lined up for college, education, training. Changes their whole negative peer group. And when they come out, yes, still with the £47, they've got another young offender who's there waiting for them, who takes them down to their probation, who gets them settled, who takes them back home, makes that mother or that father believe in the promises because the young person has done a lot of positive things. that was the story for one of my clients. I saw him today, and I'll have you know that when he was in prison, his whole face, his whole body was all sunk in. He was addicted to crack cocaine, and his burglaries totaled about £300 a week to feed his habit. I saw him today, and he's now working. He's becoming a manager, and his body size, he was so big he could shroud out the sun. It was amazing. So that's all I've got to say. Every penny that gets raised tonight will go to the front line and will make a difference. Believe my words, no one is more passionate about my job than me. Believe me. And I have got a fantastic team that are all equally as passionate as me. Well, maybe. But that's my story.